Welcome to the NLP Talks Podcast, bringing you inspirational stories along with a good dose of potentially life-changing NLP strategies. I'm Laura Evans, multi-award-winning NLP trainer, and I'm on a mission to help you unleash your potential in business and life. I'm so glad you're here. Pull up a chair, listen in, and let's get started on revealing more about this transformational NLP toolkit. Hey, how you doing? I hope you're really well. Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of the NLP Talks podcast. Today's guest is Jody Bennett, and she's going to share with you the difference that NLP made for her in her career. Jody had a very long, successful career in human resources, or people, as it might now be known. She was confident, competent, and very well regarded. And when she came on the NLP Practitioner course, she realised that actually there were a couple of things that might have been holding her back. She talks in the episode about how she beat fearing being judged, and that led to her putting herself and her team forward for a number of awards, one of which they now have won. She talks about how she has mentored a member of her team. She talks about the role of language in business and the difference that NLP has made there. And one of the most interesting things I think you're going to enjoy is as she shares how she joined her current organization as a head of people. And through her ability to influence, build great relationships and add strategically to the agenda of the organization, she was very quickly recognized as the people director, firmly part of the executive team. She says some stuff personally too about her fear of wobbly teeth, which I know you're going to love hearing about. But most importantly, she says NLP has allowed her to breathe again and that she feels much more balanced now and present, which is really what many of us would like, right? So let's go across and hear how Jody started out her career, because she didn't start in HR.
I had no idea what I wanted to do when I grew up. I did what everyone else kind of like explored the different, be a doctor, so all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And when it came to do work experience at school, I thought, well, maybe I want to be a nanny. Maybe I want to look after children. So I did some work experience looking after children and quickly realised I don't like children. So that kind of ended that career thought process. And then I started at Sainsbury's when I was 16. So it gave me a lot of opportunities to do lots of different things, and you learn so many different skills in relation to people management that I then ended up specialising in learning and development, organisational design, and then I did generalist HR. So I just fell into it, but I absolutely love it.
So tell me a bit about your HR career. Obviously, we're going to come on to talk about NLP because it's an NLP talk podcast. But talk to me about your career kind of prior to coming and discovering NLP and doing some stuff with me. What was it like?
I've always been really confident as an HR professional. So I've always had a lot of confidence in my abilities. I've always had fantastic leaders. Whatever job I've done in HR, I've had really good mentors. I've always worked hard. I've kind of delivered my role objectives. I've made mistakes. I've learned from my mistakes. But I've always loved and had a passion for what I've done. And it's not ever been an element of doubt in my mind. That's something I've always, it's one of my plates that I spin that I've always had that confidence in.
I love it. So what brought you to NLP? Because I'm kind of curious because, obviously I know a little bit about your background and you were hugely successful in your HR career and still to date, which we're going to talk about, but you were hugely successful in your HR career and well regarded as an HR professional, as you say, hugely competent, confident, and all of that stuff. So what brought you to NLP? I'm curious.
Yeah. Look, the last few years, we've all gone through a lot of change. We've all, with the pandemic, and I know on your podcast that's been raised previously. I think for me, I liken it to a bit of an analogy, which is, when you're on a plane and you go through the safety procedures and they say when the oxygen masks drop, you should put the mask on yourself before you put it on your children. Yep. For me, I was in that place where I was so self-sacrificing that I was putting the oxygen to everyone else rather than myself first, that I had depleted my oxygen levels. And I was at a moment of, I need to be able to help myself before I can help anyone else. So I needed to take some time out to focus on me, what I needed to do to make myself an even better person, not just an HR professional. I looked at lots of different therapies. I looked at CBT and things like that. And I thought, actually, no, they're not for me. I don't want to go back through past trauma. I want to focus on the present and the going, moving forward. And NLP kind of, just came about. And so I just embraced it and went for it. And it was definitely the right choice.
Yeah, and I think you raised a really interesting point there, because I think one of the things, and of course NLP has been used in a therapeutic context, but one of the things I loved, because obviously when I found NLP, I was still in my HR career. And what I loved about it was this focus on success and results, as in find other people that are doing things really well and learn how to replicate them and learn how to focus on being an even better version of yourself. Because I was, as I say, I was an HR manager in NLP. No, I was certainly not an HR manager at NLP. I was an HR, I can't get my words out, an HR manager, and I was looking to help everyone else. It's really interesting listening to how you just described that, because I went on NLP because I wanted to be a better HR manager. I wanted to be a better professional. I wanted to be able to better help other people, be a better leader, be a better coach. And it was all about everyone else. And I had a realization on my NLP practitioner course that actually it wasn't about anyone else. And I'd gone almost for the wrong reason, not because it did help others, but then it was about me. And all of a sudden I had this light bulb moment on the course, and I was like, oh my goodness, this isn't about anyone else. This is about me first. And then I can help other people. So it's really interesting to hear you say that, because I can really relate to that. So let's talk a bit about your NLP training. So you have done our certified NLP practitioner course and certified coach course. So you've done the 11 days of training. So tell me, as someone walking into that room at that point in your career, looking for what you were looking for, and then you came and found me. And let's not make it about me. But the NLP stuff, like, what did you get out of it? What were kind of some of your light bulb moments training with me?
That actually you're not alone, and a lot of other people in the room feel exactly the same as you do. Actually, people's limiting beliefs are really similar. Lack of confidence, you're really not alone. So that's really reassuring, in the way that that you're going on a journey with others, and actually you build really strong bonds with those people that you go on the journey with as well. I think I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about helping others that I thought, like I said, I've always had confidence as a HR professional, but to learn so much more about the pure, how to communicate, really rapport building, the language you use, and the difference between mentoring and coaching and all this. So I learned so many more skills and techniques.
I think one of the things, I don't know about you, I'm curious to ask you this, but one of the things I really loved about doing the NLP practitioner course was there was absolutely no expectation on me. And as an HR professional, and in your case, a senior exec within HR, which we'll come on to, there is, your job title sometimes goes before you, doesn't it? And then when you're in a room like that, you're just one of lots of people, and you haven't got to be anything to anyone or be providing solutions, as we often do in HR and all those things. You could just be Jody. Yeah. You could actually just soak up any bits, because as we've already said, you're super confident, super successful, very competent at what you did. But I don't know about you. I then sat there and went, oh, I didn't realise I still had that. But actually it doesn't matter, because there's no one here that's, that it's going to impact on my career or anything. I can just be me, and I can just get it fixed, and no one else is going to be none the wiser. And you come out, you version 2.0, an even more improved version. I don't know, did you have a similar experience?
Definitely. I think you definitely let the mask down, because you've got to be yourself. But if you're not yourself, and if you don't throw yourself into it, you're not going to take anything of value away from the course. And I remember my first day, and even when we did introductions, I think I cried introducing myself, if you remember.
I think you might have shed a few leaky eyes moments, yes.
Yeah, because you've just got this weight of the world fall off your shoulders. It's like, I'm gonna get something so valuable out of this. I'm gonna learn so much about me, and I'm gonna learn so much about how I can help other people. And yeah, you just have this big release moment. I don't know if other people feel like that, but that definitely happened for me.
I think you'll find most of us feel like that. It's like, finally, it's me time. Finally, I get to do that. Were there any kind of like light bulb standout moments for you on that course? I'm just wondering.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was heightened emotions all the way through that course. And what I love about you, Laura, is that you don't care. You do care, but you don't drill into that, the root cause as to why you're so highly emotional or what's happened to put you in that place or anything like that. And I remember it was the second to last day of the practitioner, and you went, Jody, can I just kind of talk to you about something? And I remember I was standing aside, and you went, do you think you may fear rejection? And I was like, do you remember, Laura? And I just went,
I do, actually. I'd completely forgotten. Yes.
I just went, oh my God, absolutely. That's my light bulb moment. It was like, that's completely, that was what it is. Yeah.
I love it. It's interesting because you say about, not drilling into things. I don't know about you, but it was one of the things I loved about NLP, because I was really worried that doing a practitioner course, that people would be asking me lots of questions about my past. And I didn't really want to talk about it, like just leave it where it is. I'm not interested in any of that, and actually I love the fact that, you could deal with some of these issues without having to go through all of that stuff. Because as corporate people, professional people, that's not what we're used to doing. Like, we don't go into lots of detail. Like, you don't ever get asked about any of that. It's all the kind of corporate stuff. And it suited me brilliantly. And this idea that NLP is content free hugely appealed to me. And it's interesting that you've picked up on a similar theme. But yes, I do remember that moment, actually. It's coming back to me now. I'd completely forgotten. But yes, you'd been doing some stuff all week, hadn't you? And we were towards the end of it. And I don't know why, intuitively or whatever, I just picked up on this thing. And I remember saying, Jody, come over a minute. and I asked you. So tell us a bit more then about this fear of being rejected or fear of being judged. Like, how did that typically play out in your career? And perhaps how is it now we A, discovered it was an issue, and B, dealt with it? Like, give everybody a bit of a feel for how that plays out for you in your career.
Yeah, I think so previously, it's that fear of rejection could stem in many different walks of life. But it's that question that we all ask ourselves of, what if someone doesn't like me, or what if someone judges me or has an opinion on me? And I would never do anything that put myself on a platform to bring attention to myself in a wide audience. So prior to NLP, I would never have done this. Yes, I'm confident in my abilities as a professional, but I'd never put myself on a podcast for other HR professionals to judge me or anyone. But now, having done NLP, an example I could give is I've been in my current role for 11 months now. In that 11 months, with a brand new people team, we have put ourselves forward for 3 HR in Hospitality Awards, of which we were finalists in all 3 categories. And we were winners in one of the categories for excellence in promoting careers. I know.
Amazing.
I would never have put myself or my team on that platform of being judged or rejected, going back to that light bulb moment. But now, yeah, absolutely. Brilliant.
Oh, no. Have you got the award? For those of you watching us as we're recording this live, I'm sorry, those of you listening to the podcast. Oh my, that's beautiful crystal trophy that you've got there. I love it. I'm really sorry, those of you listening to the actual podcast won't have seen that, but just trust me, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful trophy. But I think you're right. I think awards are an interesting thing, aren't they? Because you when you basically put yourself forward for something and you say, here's a project that we have, here is something we've delivered in our business, or here's something that I've personally led, or here's something I have personal investment in. There is this fear that, actually, that it's amazing and what you've delivered, but will someone else see that? And like you say, worst still, someone rejecting you, as in not even shortlisting you.
Exactly.
And I just think you've hit on a really interesting point, because so many people stop themselves putting themselves forward, and therefore don't get that warm, lovely, fuzzy feeling when someone says, actually, we think what you've done is amazing, so much so here's an award. Like, people deny themselves the opportunity of having that moment because of the fear of them actually being rejected, or them actually being told no. And so it stops people, doesn't it? It stops. Like, you can't get the award because you're too fearful that actually someone might say no. And I just think you're absolutely right.
We actually went one step further. So, when you do awards, you're promoting yourself and your team and what you've delivered. We actually, after getting the award, we actually went one step further and did a mass colleague engagement survey with our business, where our colleagues, our actual teams, told us what it's like to be working and if we were a great place to work. And since then, we've actually got Best Companies accreditation as well, based on our own team's feedback. So it's kind of a double whammy. And to think what's been achieved in the 11 months, I'm incredibly proud.
Oh my God. So quite rightly. Award-winning team, award-winning function, award-winning leader of the function. Now, I just want to ask you, while we're kind of on that subject. So you mentioned you've been with your current organization for 11 months. And I know during that time, you've been recognized as a leader and exec within that organization. And as you and I both know, some organizations are very good at saying that people are important to them, but actually when it comes to being in the organization, you'd have this rude awakening where you realize actually people are not that important. And in this particular organization, you had, I think, quite a different experience, if I'm right. And I'm just wondering, because obviously you've been so successful, I know, within your career just in these 11 months with them, and have had changes to your job title and so forth. So I know a lot of HR professionals will listen to this podcast episode. So I'm just curious, share with everybody, if you would, that journey and how you have managed to go from being the head of people to the people director, because that's quite a step up in a lot of people's eyes. And how did you do that in such a short period of time?
I think a lot of it definitely came from NLP and my impact and influence. In my previous role, I was a head of people, and I started with my current company as a head of people. And something I'd noticed, and I don't know if other people can relate to this, but when you look at exec leadership teams, you'll often have a lot of directors, a managing director, an operations director, a finance director. But often when it comes to people, they're head of people or head of HR. And it's exactly that. If you're working for a business that truly values their people and put their people first, why wouldn't the person in the exec team leading that function sit alongside the other directors within the leadership team? And fortunately, I report into a CEO that absolutely sees the value and what I add to the business, and gave me that title to reflect the job that I deliver. So, that's how I got there.
Oh, amazing. And I just think it's a testament to obviously your professional skill and your ability to be an amazing HR professional. But as you say, this getting the recognition from a CEO of an organization that actually what you do is strategically important, and actually it deserves to be around the exec table alongside all those other directors, because I've been in organizations like you say, where the head of people reports to the ops director, for example, or the head of people reports to the finance director, or the head of people reports to the MD, but there's still a head of people, and there's a lot of other heads of function, and it just enables you, doesn't it, to be so much more influential when you can actually be in the exec team and be driving that. It's amazing to hear that NLP has played a role, because I think it's be interesting for people listening to the podcast, because we have so many coaches, and I love all our coaches in our community. They're absolutely amazing. You're not a coach in the sense that you're not running a coaching business or anything else, and you've taken the NLP skills and applied them in a professional capacity, and really used them to influence a business, to elevate yourself. And I just think that's just amazing. It's just amazing. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm so proud that I had just like a little switch in there of giving you a few extra tools, a few extra bits, just to complement what you already had.
Thank you.
And there'll be a lot of HR people that will hugely admire you for that. I know if I was back in HR, I would absolutely hugely admire your ability to do that, to really raise that agenda and to do that. Because we talk about influence in an organization, and there are so many facets to that, aren't there? How do you go about influencing an agenda of an organization and influence the CEO to see people as being strategic? And, I know you've talked previously about perhaps that shift in yourself around perhaps moving from being maybe more solution focused to being more challenging and those things. I just wonder, could you share a little bit more about, maybe some of the detail about some of the NLP skills and how you saw that play out in your role?
Yeah, I think, my role is all about people. So you do have to have the skills of building rapport. I mean, it's an open door. People need to be able to talk to me, and, I need to have active listening skills as well. Yeah, so definitely building that rapport, the collaborative approach to everything I do. I don't work in silo. My team don't work in silo. We work with all areas of the business to achieve that unified goal. So we're all working towards the same thing. And I think as well, one of my values is do what matters most. So I ask the question why a lot more now. I don't try and solutionize, we need to do this and we need to do that, and it will just be about my thoughts. It's about asking our teams, what do we need to do differently, and the why. And actually, it's a lot easier to get people on board if they're the ones coming up with the ideas, and they're the ones suggesting the business case, and they're the ones coming up with the whys, and you're supporting that delivery. So I hope that kind of answers the question.
Yes, absolutely it does. No, absolutely it does. Like you say, rapport, great relationships, influencing, and perhaps a slightly different shift in mindset at times when needed to help you do that.
The language that I use when I communicate, I used to use but a lot. I didn't realize until after NLP, when I'm writing comms, I'm like, but all the time, or try. It's like, no, don't try, just do it. And don't. It's like, it's all those negative connotations. Yeah, I didn't realize how often I wrote them. So I'm definitely, in all my communications, I definitely go back through and I try and do does that suit a visual person? Does that suit an auditory person? And kind of go through those representation systems to make sure that I am bringing everyone on the journey with me and kind of, engaging everyone.
Oh, amazing. I was so pleased to hear. So the things that Jody was just talking about, just kind of, if I kind of just explain for those people that perhaps are not aware, one of the things that we talk about on the practitioner course is an introduction to language. We cover it much more so on Master Prac, but on Prac, we start to really explore how your language is either getting in the way of your message or is supporting your message. And this regular listeners of the podcast will have heard me talk before about the power of the word but and try, which are the two that Jody just mentioned. So just to recap, in linguistic terms, but is what we call a negation, and it deletes everything that comes before it. So if we talk about it in the context of giving feedback, I might say to someone, that was a great presentation, but there are some things to improve. Now, the problem is the unconscious mind treats a but as a delete button, essentially. So when I say that's a great presentation, but there's things to improve, I've basically deleted that was a great presentation, and the person is just left looking at there's things I need to to be improved. And depending on how they interpret that, if they've got confidence issues or they have self-doubt or they have some things, their mind will process that in a way, maybe limiting beliefs, process it in a way that perhaps that's critical of them. And they don't even hear the positive stuff. But we use but all the time in our comms if we're not mindful of it. And I always say to people, if you can take the word but out and maybe replace it with the word and, which is what we call a conjunction, it brings two things together, then people actually hear that was a great presentation and there are things to improve. But as Jody was just saying, the first thing is starting to do the awareness piece, which is, oh my goodness, how often did I write it? And Jody, I was exactly the same. There was but everywhere in everything I wrote. I was like, oh my goodness, what am I doing? I'm really causing myself a problem here. And but it's brilliant when you start to see the changes. Now, the word try is also one that Jody just mentioned. So for those of you that aren't aware, the word try to the unconscious mind implies the possibility of failure. So when you say to someone, well, try for the promotion, we're actually planting the seed of doubt that they might not get it. And you're much better off, instead of saying try for the promotion, just say go for it. Because you will put them on a much better path to taking action and getting the result that they want. And they're just two words that we cover on the practitioner course. So yeah, and then Jody just mentioned there, the rep systems, they were a game changer for me in HR, absolute game changer, because we all have a preference in our language. So I'm kinesthetic, so I would always write any staff comms or emails or anything like that. I'd write it in a kinesthetic way because that's how I talk. That's me. And if the person receiving it is also kinesthetic, then that's going to land really well. But if they're not, and they're a visual person, an auditory person, or what we call an auditory digital person, so there's 4 preferences, that's not going to land as well. And I always say to people on the practitioner course, wherever possible with your comms, one-to-one emails, phone calls, workshops, trainings, meetings, you name it. If you can actually draw all 4 rep systems into your comms, then all of a sudden it lands better for everyone. Now, an example of that might be in a redundancy situation, because in HR, I used to run a lot of redundancies. It's kind of almost the downside of the role we do, but there we are. And I might, if you just listen to this sentence, so if I said to someone, I really want to make sure by the end of the day you understand what the new structure looks like, someone will speak with you and make sure that you have an opportunity to speak to them. You'll know whether or not you're impacted by the end of the day. And if you are, we're here to support you. In that one sentence, I've covered all 4 systems. And this is how elegant you can be with your comms when you understand how to appeal to everyone. So I just thought, sorry, Jody, to kind of just take over, but I just thought, given you'd mentioned them, it was useful just for the listeners on the podcast to actually hear, the real value that sits behind those things. So, and I'm just delighted that you've seen such a difference, being aware of that. It's like one of those little nuggets, isn't it? That you it's a throwaway little 2-minute thing on a prac course. And then all of a sudden you go, oh, actually, this makes a big difference.
Yeah, definitely.
So obviously you've got a brand new people team that you're leading, 11 months in. And I'm wondering, is there an example perhaps you could share with everyone of how you have been using your skills to perhaps coach and mentor your team? And have you seen any benefit there?
Yes, he's going to be delighted that we're about to talk about him, Laura. And he's probably sniggering now. But yeah.
Who is it?
So Ethan joined me at the same time. He already worked for the company. He was a manager in one of our brew pubs. And he came across to be brand trainer at the same time as I joined. And I've mentored Ethan over the last 11 months. And in that time, the growth and his output and his confidence and his behaviours has been superb, to the point where he was actually one of our finalists for HR Rising Star at the HR and Hospitality Awards. Yeah.
Congratulations, Ethan, if you're hearing or watching this.
He's been promoted to Learning and Development Partner. Wow. And he actually attended your 2-day coaching diploma course, which he absolutely loved. He's a big fan. So, yes. So
Ethan, I loved it. I loved having you on the course, Ethan. It was amazing. And he's such I absolutely loved him. I'll say no more.
It's funny, the other day, actually, the other day I asked him for some feedback and he wasn't comfortable. You could see he wasn't comfortable giving it. I was like, come on, just give me something, real opportunity I need to work on. And he said, well, actually, I've learned it's not just 1 cup of coffee, but it's 2 cups of coffee. I can't approach you before 2 cups of coffee. And I was like, you know what, I take that on board. I clearly get up earlier, drink more coffee first.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, at least, Ethan, you've worked out how to get the best out of your boss, which is brilliant. And yeah, huge congratulations, Ethan, on your being a finalist in the Rising Star, and huge congratulations to you, Jody, for that piece of development and what you've done with him. And it is lovely when we get situations like this where senior leaders in organizations come on and do the training with us, and then they spot people in their team that they don't actually, do you know what, this would be really good for this person. And NLP isn't for everyone. I mean, I'm always very clear about that. It isn't for everyone. You've got to want to learn. You've got to want to perhaps change your outlooks on things and acquire things. And I always say to people, you're not going to love everything I teach you either. But what you do need to do is don't need to do anything, but I would encourage you to take from any course you do with me all the things that are relevant to you and your role and what you do, and implement them. So yeah, it's a shame. We should have got Ethan on as well, so he could have shared his thing as well. But yeah, so yeah, what an accolade. So Jody, obviously you did the 11 days training with me, and you clearly have had massive success in the 11 months that you have been in your role, both personally, for your team, for the organization you work in. An example of someone you developed with Ethan, like, that's absolutely amazing. And if we go back to the beginning of this podcast where we were talking about you needing to put your oxygen mask on first and taking a bit of me time, talking to you as Jody now, as opposed to perhaps the people director of an organization, what is life like for you now as Jody the person, having done all of this training?
I would say I'm a far more balanced person. I think prior to NLP, I probably had a little bit of an addictive personality, in the sense that I threw myself so much into something I enjoyed so much that are at a detriment to other areas of my life. So I'm definitely far more balanced. I'm calmer and more considered in what I do. And I would definitely say I'm more present. So I am so much more present in what I'm doing in that moment. So right now I'm present, I'm here, then it will be back to work this afternoon. But when it comes to this evening, it's all about my boys. It's my boy time. And when I'm with my children, they're my priority. That's what the moment I'm present in. So yeah, I definitely, like I say, finding a better balance. I'm also 10 pounds heavier, which I say I'm 10 pounds heavier of happiness. That's 10 pounds of happiness. I'm down to good pub food.
Brilliant.
But yeah, I would say, well, you saw me, Laura, a year ago to now. I'm smiley. I am happy. I am in a good place. And thank you, because so much of that is down to you. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, it's always, I love getting people on the podcast, as regular listeners will know, because I remember, as you say, I remember what you were like when you arrived on day one of that prac course, and to hear of your successes professionally, and also to hear the benefits to you personally of being more present and more balanced is just amazing. It's interesting because a lot of our students do talk about that. Perhaps present is not the word that they might use, but it's that thing of being able to control that internal chatter, because life is just so busy, isn't it, for all of us? And when you're at work, you're worrying about the boys. And when you're with the boys, you're worrying about work. And when are you supposed to get you time? And when are you supposed to be Jody the professional, or Jody the wife, or, and all of those things. And I think you're right. I think it ruins a lot of moments for a lot of people, because people are not present. and we're all guilty of that. Listen, I'm not perfect. I mean, I still have moments where, your head just is so full, but thankfully they're fleeting moments now. And the majority of the time, people like yourself, like me, like all of our other students, do talk about this point of actually there's more joy in my life. I'm more present. I'm calmer. I'm more balanced. All the things you just said, which I just think is just wonderful for quality of life as well as anything else. I remember this is nothing to do with work, but I need to ask you. So I remember on your practitioner course, we ran the fast phobia model on a problem which you had to do with wobbly teeth, which will make a few people chuckle, I'm sure. So Jody, could I just get you to share the wobbly tooth story?
We were doing the fast phobias model, and so I had children relatively late. I was 35 when I had my first Stanley. And I was like, at one point, I was like, do I really want children? And the reason I wasn't sure if I really wanted children is because I was terrified of them getting wobbly teeth. I don't know whether I can't remember. I don't know if it's because of my experience when I was younger, but absolutely terrified of wobbly teeth, to the point where I said to my husband, we're going to have to send them to the grandparents during the time they have wobbly teeth because I can't deal with it. I just won't be able to deal with it. And so, when it came to doing the fast phobia model and we did wobbly teeth, we couldn't tell straight away if it worked or not, because you can't just look around the room and go, okay, who's got a wobbly tooth? So it's taken a while for me to actually see if the model worked. And this is a little bit creepy, but I've done this just for the purpose of this. So in here is my son's teeth.
I love it. Now, for the purpose of the podcast, she's showing us a tiny little box with beautiful crystals on the top. And so Stanley's teeth that have fallen out are in that box, and you have it on your desk.
Well, but they're at a distance. And I mean, I don't look at them, and they're not like a shrine or anything. No. But it's just for me to remind me of how well NLP works. And if you put your mind in that right place, and I mean, I don't, Stanley has lots of wobbly teeth at the moment, and I'm not there like grabbing his face saying, show me, but I'm accepting of it. I don't need to give him away now.
I love it. I love the fact you're not sending your children away. Oh, love them. But it's true. And sometimes it's those little things that you kind of go, oh my goodness, I've got two boys. At some point, they're going to lose all their teeth. And that could have been something really, really stressful for you. And actually, now you're like, okay, well, it's almost like kind of matter of fact, isn't it? It's just like, okay, well, they've got wobbly tooth and it's going to fall out, and that's okay. And, and I think that's one of the things the fast phobia model is great for. Like, it doesn't take something that someone's really scared of and make them love it. It's like you say, I mean, you're not going, oh, where's the next wobbly teeth? That's not the point. The point is that it takes something that used to cause you that problem and now makes it manageable. Now makes it, okay, it's fine. I can deal with this. And I know you don't normally have them on your desk. Just for transparency, you should just put them upstairs to show me because we're doing the podcast. But that's just amazing. It's just, it's the changes in you personally and professionally, like it's just phenomenal. So phenomenal. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast to come and share your stories with everybody, because they're just brilliant. I just love them.
Thank you.
Now, if it's okay with you, I'd like to ask you a few quick fire questions. Now, Jody's not aware that I'm going to do this because this was not part of the plan. So it's a bit like, oh my goodness, what are you going to say to me, Laura? But I'm going to ask you a few questions, if that's okay, just to kind of start to get towards the end of the podcast. Are you up for that?
Go for it.
Go for it. The old Jody Bennett said that. She'd have gone, oh my goodness, what are you doing?
Why didn't you prepare me?
Say again.
I would have said, why didn't you prepare me?
Yeah, exactly. She's like, yeah, whatever. So there will probably be some people, Jody, that listen to this podcast who are maybe considering an HR career, or maybe at the early part of their HR career, or looking to get progression like you have. And I just wanted to pause to ask you for your kind of pearl of wisdom, because if someone's listening to this podcast and they are looking to get into HR, or they're looking to progress their career in HR, doing something similar maybe to yourself, what would your kind of top tips be for them? What kind of things would you suggest?
I'd probably say understand your purpose. So HR covers lots of different work streams. And for me, I'm more people focused in the sense that I like focusing on a company's culture, the values, the vision, the behaviors, how you make it a fun and great place to work for people. So that's what motivates me. That's what inspires and gets me up every day, focusing on those kind of work streams. I still have a great understanding of employment legislation and recruitment, but it's understanding exactly what you enjoy the most. Because I personally, just with those examples, I think there is a little bit of a difference between HR and people. And I would definitely put myself in the people camp based on the examples I just gave. I'd also say really consider the industry in which you want to be an HR professional. I've only worked in hospitality and retail. I love those industries because they're fast-paced, they're customer-focused, there's remote management, there's multi-site, big numbers. That's what really kind of, gets me going. But, legal might be, or finance might be what interests someone else. So really understand the type of industry you want to be an HR professional in as well.
Amazing. Such sage advice, pearls of wisdom. So thank you. Okay, so let's do a few fun things. So if you were going to be on a desert island all on yourself and you could only take one thing, what would you take? One. I'm not letting you have any more than one. You can only take one thing.
I can't say my family.
No. I mean, no. You're on. Let's go hypothetically. You're on a desert island on your own. What's the one thing you would take?
Oh, can I be shallow and say something like Botox?
You absolutely can. I love it. Brilliant.
I value so much more in life than Botox, I promise.
Absolutely. I know you do. That's a good fun answer, though. Okay, so if you could have anything written on a billboard, what would you have written on a billboard?
Oh.
As Jody now, I don't want the professional answer. As Jody, what would you have written on the billboard?
I would say, oh God, this is a bit deep. Hurt people. So less judgment, more kindness.
Love it. Absolutely love it. If you could have coffee with one historical person, who would you choose?
Oh. Does it have to be a famous historical person, or is it someone who's no longer with us?
Okay,
today?
You can have anyone. If you could have coffee with anyone, go on. Who would you have coffee with?
Probably my dad. He passed away when I was 23, so I'd probably want to have that moment again.
Coffee with it. I love it.
3 heat sugars he'd have.
I love it. Brilliant. So reflecting on your experience of training with us here at Unleash Your Potential, if you could pick one word to encapsulate your experience of training with us, what word would you use?
I'd say powerful.
Good. Love it.
Can I say one other thing though?
Oh, go on. Everybody always does this. They're like, but I want to say something else.
I would say it's a triangle though. In the sense of, yes, you've got NLP, but if you're going to do NLP, do it with Unleash Your Potential and do it with Laura, because that's what makes it powerful, that triangle.
Oh, that's so kind. Thank you so much. I love it. And final question. If you could go back to your 18-year-old self and give yourself one pearl of advice, what would you say to her?
I would say no more. Say no.
Yes.
More.
Oh my goodness, we could all do with doing that, right? We all could do with that. Jody, I can't thank you enough for your time. I know you are super, super busy, and I can't thank you enough for giving me your time. It has been so lovely to be here chatting to you, hearing about your career and to hear about what it's done for you personally. And I'm so glad our paths crossed. And I had the pleasure of meeting you and having you on the course. And thank you for being such an open book today and sharing all of that with everybody. So huge, huge gratitude to you. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I've loved it. Absolutely loved it. So I encourage anyone that gets the opportunity to just jump in and do it. It's great.
Oh, Phil Hanyon was. I don't think you know Phil, Jody, but Phil's one of our other students. Who's just a great podcast, ladies. So, Phil, thank you so much.
Phil's. I actually watched.
Oh, did
Phil's.
you?
Yeah. Likewise. Thank you, Phil.
Well, just a final few things from me then. So thank you as always to all of the people that tune into our podcast. This podcast would not exist without our amazing community, which of course includes Jody, and of course our amazing listeners. So thank you for continuing to tune in and listen to the podcast. I hugely, hugely appreciate every single one of you that listens to the podcast. If you haven't left us a review on the podcast, I would really love it if you would take a few minutes to do that. Wherever you're listening to this podcast, whether it be on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any of the other major platforms, I'd really appreciate anybody leaving us a review and letting us know what you think about the podcast. That would mean an awful lot to me. So thank you in advance for doing that. And finally, if you have enjoyed listening to Jody's podcast today and you want to find out more about doing the NLP Practitioner course and Certified Coach course, which is what Jody has done so far, and you want to find out more, then please do head on over to our website, www.unleashyourpotential.org.uk, and we would love to welcome you onto either one of our online Zoom courses or, of course, to come and meet in person in Cardiff. So thank you all. Take care of yourself, and I look forward to seeing you. Well, no, not virtually, but being here. That's probably better. Being here with everybody again on the next episode of the NLP Talks podcast.